again to Moving Mindset Mondays, and we are super excited. I am your host, Coach Brooks, and today's guest is a phenomenal testimony. He is going to share some of the most tremendous things you can overcome. 17-year substance abuse that he was able to overcome. His name is Coach Leon. He is a certified sober coach and a abuse counselor, and we are definitely looking forward to hearing what he has to share today. So without further ado, let's bring on Coach Leon Richards. Hey, Coach,
Hey,
how you
doing? Good. How about
Good,
yourself,
good.
sir?
I'm doing good, man. I mean, I'm excited about your story. I'm excited about the things that God has been able to let you overcome. It has been a tremendous journey for you. It has been an amazing test and trial, but God is faithful, especially when we put our best foot forward. So, I want you, Coach, to just take us back to the beginning where it all started, how you got on that path, and walk us to where you are today and the things that you're blessed to be able to do.
Absolutely. Before I say anything about that, I just want to, thank you again for allowing me to share your platform and also to be a daily inspiration to me. In a time where so many people are wrapped in the secular and the flesh, and they do things for likes and views, there's a narrow path that only few take. And you're one of those brothers that I can honestly say day in and day out is putting in the work unapologetically and representing the kingdom well. So thank you so much for allowing me a chance to share this with you today. I really appreciate that.
Well, absolutely, man. I mean, I'm grateful that God gives me the opportunity, man, and to be able to cross paths with a brother like yourselves. It's a blessing. So
I appreciate that, Coach. Like you said, my name is Leon Richard. I go by Coach Leon nowadays. I am a sober coach, certified drug and alcohol counselor, and also a pain reliever. I say I like to get the pain out your mind so we can get it out your body. It's a mind, body, and spiritual thing. I grew up in Los Angeles, California, born 1979. Pretty regular childhood. Brothers. I have a younger brother and a younger sister, single mom, but we definitely had family support and, we had pretty much everything we wanted, definitely everything that we needed. During those times, you can ride bikes for miles. We can be together in a group and go out. Times change as we got older. But, mom had parties, grandmother had parties and loved to entertain and the basic grow up. Somewhere around 7 years old, one of my mother's friends who ended up becoming my babysitter, she attended these parties a lot. And she took a liking to me. And so while everybody would party and be doing their thing, she would kind of take me off to herself and have us alone and, teach me things that a child shouldn't, how to kiss and how to, things that a child should not be really introduced to, especially not by a full adult. So, that was the reason why I mention that now is because that was the beginning of what I now understand was a warped way of thinking. My innocence was taken at that age. There were times where we're playing out those bike rides that, we used to take. I would always make a point to ride by her house to make sure maybe I can see her in the driveway. Is her car parked there? And, those fantasies and thoughts about when the next time I would see her would start, which 7, 8 years old is something that, like I said, shouldn't happen. So, fast forward a couple years, we moved to Oxnard, California. My mother opened up a beauty salon and she was very hard worker, 3 kids, single mom. So she definitely did everything she can possibly do to make sure we had and didn't lack or at least kept up with our peers. That single parent household led me to be the man of the house. That is a term even to this day I don't like. 9 years old, 10 years old, I am not a man of any house. I am still a boy. I may have had more responsibilities than otherwise, but that man title combined with what had already happened to me as a child doing man things, put me in a certain mindset of, I really am grown at this point. But, it was, we were trying to band together and do what we can. My mother had me when she was 18. We were really close. And, I didn't see any real problems with it at the time. About 10 years old, I was full-fledged, looking at pornographic videos and magazines. And I'm gonna show you how this spirit works, and maybe other people who have been through this situation can attest. For some reason, when we would go out and have fun or end up in the alley somewhere, I always ran across boxes of these magazines or VHS cassettes. It never failed. As time went on, I would just find them. We were playing in my friend's garage one time and we were playing hide and seek, and I went behind the car and there were a bunch of more magazines. So this kind of thing happened to me growing up, and it kind of just fed that spirit. And also I learned how to keep secrets at this point, because when I was young, I was told, if you say anything, I'm gonna go to jail, you'll get in trouble, your mama get in trouble, so I really believed it. And just to backtrack a little, it was fun for me in a way, like, wow, this is really happening to me. But see, what warped me was when she would babysit me, I anticipated what would happen. And when I would try to advance, she would say, stop, get over there, go sit down. And it would make me sad. And once she saw that I was sad, then she'd say, oh, I'm just playing, come here. So there was a mental and emotional manipulation going on there that she was doing to me at a real young age. And now I know that's also where codependency began. My codependency issues as an adult began. So, in school, I was into sports. On the outside, a normal kid, but I did have those secrets. And when you feed those spirits, so to speak, they grow and they begin to take over. So while kids were out playing, I was in the house most of the time, for the most part, because there was something that I needed to feed. So keeping those secrets from my mother, brother, friends, it was an ongoing battle. It was an ongoing battle. Even when my mother did find magazines, she didn't understand how deep it was. And she never did until my adulthood. Fast forward, thinking about those times as a little kid, 9, 10, 11, 12, I met other kids my age, and females in particular, young girls, that we would make out too. So now as an adult, I realized they went through the same situation that I did. Someone had to teach them this as well.
Right.
And I bring these points up first because this was the foundation of everything else that was to come.
So let me ask you something, Coach. So you're saying that this is where it all started. I mean, this is what the beginning was. How long did it take? I mean, when it first started, how long was the period that this went on for?
I was about 7. I would say about 7, until maybe about 10. Because even when I lived in Oxnard, my mother would still come to LA a lot. She still had friends and would still party, and those parties would still continue. As I got older, things would still take place. I believe that it got to a certain age where it wasn't fun for her anymore, because I was kind of a little more mature, a little older. So, my suggestions and things that I had heard and coming to her with them kind of, it made her feel, I don't know what it made her feel exactly, but it kind of stopped around age 11. Around age 11. But the understanding of me keeping secrets, the understanding of porn and feeding that whole thing with masturbation and the whole 9, that was in full effect. Full effect.
Wow.
So I learned from that there are so many children that are underrepresented in how much that actually happens. For some reason, I kept that secret all the way to adulthood. I didn't want anything to happen. I felt like, my mother would protect me and she would do what was necessary. And I just didn't want her to get in trouble, or, I grew up around violence as well. So seeing violence, I didn't want to perpetuate it by, you know, me exposing what had taken place. And
so
I
you
also
wanted to protect her. So I asked because you want to protect her.
Absolutely. I wanted to protect her as well as my mother. So it was like me, again, as a kid, trying to juggle these adult responsibilities and make sure everybody else is okay, and feeling like I'm strong enough to just hold on to it. As long as I hold on to it, then everything will be okay. So, you know, about 7th, 8th grade, I was, like I said, I was into sports. I wrestled and I also played basketball. A lot of people took a liking to me because I was well behaved and, like, you know, I was really good at sports. So I was exposed to a lot of really wonderful things as a child. Private planes that people had. We would fly over Carpinteria and go into basketball camps for free, and you know, just traveling wrestling teams. So I got to see a lot, and I kind of compartmentalized what had happened to me. I was able to suppress those things because I found a new outlet through the sports and my social gathering.
Right.
Yeah. So 10th grade comes around. I was still wrestling. It was right before CIF finals, and my mother let us know that we were moving back to LA. That was the most horrible thing I could have ever thought. Because by this time, 1995, you know, it's a lot of stuff going on by that time. It wasn't as simple a time as when I was younger. And plus I had really grown roots here. And it just sprung on us all of a sudden. My wrestling coach said, hey, you know, he can stay with me. You know, colleges are looking at him. He's in the 10th grade. This is a really good time for him right now. College and stuff like that wasn't a big deal for my family. So she was, you know, he can wrestle anywhere. So we moved back to LA. That's when the sport started. And that's when the things that I had suppressed for so long began to come back, because, like they say, idle time is the devil's workshop. So I had a whole lot of extra time on my hands. I wasn't doing anything constructive, and I began to feed that spirit again.
Right.
You know, typically people can become empaths when they are victimized like that, or they can become predators. And I just thank God that I was not a predator. It was not something that I wanted to take advantage of people. I was more of a protector. I was very overprotective of my brother and sister, especially my little sister. And everywhere I went, my brother went. Even in high school, he would go with me. He was in junior high. Out of high school, the whole thing, just to feel like I can protect him.
So, Coach, it looks like you were basically carrying the load for your family. You know, you were taking care of protect your sister, your brother, you know, and also trying to be the man of the house as well as manage school life and sports. I mean, you got a lot going on.
To the best of my ability, I sure was. You know, I was trying to put in as much work as possible, make it as easy for my mom as possible. And that man of the house label gave me a sense of pride. And it also, you know, made me really want to fulfill the responsibilities of what I thought a man should be doing around the house. I mean, I started working at 14, you know, just to have my own money and kind of alleviate some of that pressure with my mother as well. You know, in high school, I was very responsible still. You know, I went to school for aircraft maintenance, became an aircraft mechanic, but I also was doing music around this time. So about 18 years old, we were in the studio. We had just got this record deal. The guy gave me a bunch of money for this single that he wanted to promote for me first. So it was a very high celebratory moment. We were all happy. I never thought about any of the violence or anything I had saw in my past. I had grown from all of it. I'm an adult now. I felt like an adult. It's just part of what we go through. And with it being a woman, it didn't seem as bad. Whenever I would tell some of my friends about it, they would tell me how lucky I was, or man, I wish I, you know. So it was sort of a rite of passage that I would brag about, but I knew intrinsically that it had did something damaging to me. But it was, you know, when you fall as a kid, they say, get up, you're okay, don't cry. So this was the thing that I acted brave on the outside, but on the inside, you know, I was really hurt and damaged by it. During that moment in the studio, someone offered me a drink. I had never drank before. I know that I'm predisposed due to the alcoholism that rolls in my family. I've seen people drunk and arguing and fighting. So I told myself that would be something I would never partake in. But this was a special occasion. I felt like we were rap superstars and we were going to be the next big thing. So I took that drink, and a sense of ease came over me. Now I know it was all of those things that I had bottled up, that I had suppressed, that I had buried, kind of dissipated momentarily. Some of my tenseness began to kind of go away, and I was able to talk a little more freely. I was more comfortable around the ladies. I didn't seem as uptight. People that I really hadn't communicated with too much, we were really hanging out and getting along because we were kind of on this same chemical level, I guess you should say. And it just came over me like, this is what I've been missing all my life. You know, this is what's going to take me to the next level. The anxiety that I walked around with, that I didn't know I was walking around with anxiety and kind of like a ball. I never realized that until I took that first drink. I met a young lady that night, lost my virginity that night, because although I had done little things, you know, I had never went all the way. I was too scared to do that. So this was my introduction. It was a beautiful prom night, so to speak. It just went well. It was storybook, or I thought it was storybook anyway. And I chased it. The night after, I tried to, you know, kind of make that same night happen again, and weeks later, and it became a point where people would be done and head home, but I still was hanging out. You know, I would still find someone who was still drinking and hanging out because I was still trying to chase that initial night, that initial moment. And it was never the same. Although it did continue to alleviate those memories, suppress those things that, you know, it gave me a temporary moment of ease inside of my spirit, you know, and that worked. It worked until it stopped working. You know, and that was probably about a year and a half in. I met who ended up being my son's mother and my first wife. She was going to Clark Atlanta University. I hadn't used my aircraft maintenance certification at this point because I was doing music. The music thing had kind of was starting to fall apart. So I decided to just move with her. I'm gonna drive you to Georgia. And I drove her to Georgia. We made it there, and the alcohol came with me, though. You know, wherever you go, there you are. So it wasn't a new beginning as I thought it was going to be. It was kind of just same habits, activities, but just in a new area. So I was offered a job very quickly there. The second day I got there, I applied for an airline. They called me back the same day and asked if I could come in for an interview. I didn't even have proper clothes, but they understood my circumstances. I told them I was just there momentarily, but if I was offered a job, I was willing to relocate. And so they offered me the job after the interview, and I went there. And like I said, same activities, same drinking. This is where my drinking career really took hold during this time. A lot of people at the airlines were married, but you know, they're married for a long time, so their wives didn't care if they went and hung out and shot pool, and you know. But my wife was very young. You know, we got married really, really fast, and she wanted me home at 12 o'clock, not at 1 and 2 in the morning. So that put a strain on it, not to mention that I was coming home super inebriated. And then she ended up pregnant a few months later. So not having a real role model or example of how that's supposed to work, what that nucleus looks like, and she didn't either. It really began to put a strain. And at this point, the only coping mechanism that I had, or that I thought I had, was to drink. If I'm sad, drink. If I'm stressed, drink. That's the only thing I knew. But it made it worse. It made it absolutely worse. We hung in there for about a year and a half, maybe about 2 years, and we separated. She had graduated college by this time. She was becoming a probation officer. Her lifestyle was totally different from mine. And now I see why, you know, God allowed for that separation to happen, because there were things that I was participating in that could have been detrimental to her career, as well as to our family. And I just didn't see it then.
So let me ask you, when you guys came home, when you came home inebriated, I mean, what was her response? What did she say to you?
Initially, she didn't have an issue with it. you know, alcoholism and the drug use is in her family as well. So it wasn't that bad. I had a job. I paid all the bills. It was just I began to come home late. There was no sorries or anything anymore. That demon that I felt that I was feeding began to get really upset, you know, like angry. You know, now I understand when a restaurant says we have a fine selection of spirits. There's spirits that get in you when you drink. It definitely
Yeah.
is. It definitely is.
It's called spirits for a reason.
It's called spirits for a reason, and it doesn't say good spirits either. So all the pain that I was trying to suppress began to come out as anger, and that's when she had an issue. You know, well, I thought you was coming home at this time. Well, I'm home already. What the F you talking about? You know, she's like, I'm pregnant. What that got to do? You're not about to, you know. So the empathy was gone, the compassion from my wife, and the nice guy. It was like Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, and that's when she began to have an issue with me. It got to the point where she would lock the door. She would change the locks when I would go out. She said, I don't want you going out tonight. When I get back, she got really good at changing the locks to the apartment really fast. And I would have to sleep outside, but that wasn't a deterrent. I would tell her, you know, once my son is born, you won't have to worry about it anymore. And that was a total lie. I didn't drink until I did. You know, I just, again, from as a kid learning how to keep secrets and hide things, I used those skills to hide or try to hide and mask my alcoholism. So I took my son everywhere I went. I would have bottles hidden in his baby bag or maybe in the car because we had separate cars. And I tried my best to just hide it, you know, and use those, you know, skills, so to speak, that I had to kind of keep her off balance with that. But hiding it made it worse because the anxiety of getting caught, the constant checking of my breath, I was no longer enjoying the alcohol, but by this point, my body had become chemically dependent to it. So if I wake up in the morning and it's 9 o'clock, I began to get those delirium tremens, you know, that I began to get the shakes. So I'm very irritable. And again, like I said about that spirit, when you feed it, being an aircraft mechanic, we would have certain airplanes that were deemed unairworthy. So if they weren't going out, we would tow those planes out to the boneyard. And guess what? They have full liquor kits on the plane. Wow. So those kits would come up missing. Someone showed me, they said, hey man, look, they popped the red tag open. They dumped all the liquor inside a plastic bag. They threw the box away, never to be found again. And I said, oh, that's what you do. So I was excited every time a plane was deemed down. So there was always a way. So now I wasn't even holding off until I got home anymore. I was, you know, drinking at work. You know, fast forward, after that didn't work, I lost my job due to alcohol. I got on the airstrip and one of the captains smelled me. And they told me, you know, we can charge you with, I forgot the count now, but it was something crazy, like 130 counts of endangerment, or, you know, it was something crazy, you know. So they told me, we're going to do you a favor. Give me your badge, leave, and never apply for another mechanic's position again. Just never try to do it. So I lost my job. I tell my wife what happened, and she hit me with some more news. Look, I found another apartment. I'm out of here. I can't take it anymore. I was going to tell you, but you know, this is the best time. You know, so here I am again running. So I flew back to LA thinking, okay, you know, let me just plant my feet and get grounded again. But again, wherever you go, there you are. So I brought the alcohol with me, you know. It became really bad to the point, you know, well, once I got my first arrest, I got a DUI. This was about 2006 now. I moved back from Georgia in 2004. I got a DUI, and it seemed like after that point, I went to jail maybe twice a year, 3 times a year, every year until I got sober. I would tell myself, you know what? I'm never going to drink again. And I would drink that night and I would go to jail. Or I would tell myself, all right, I'm not going to jail no more. I'm just going to lock myself in this room and drink. Some kind of way, I found my way out that room and in the jail cell. So that that lasted for a few years until my grandmother, who I was staying with, she couldn't take it. My mother didn't like it at all. And so I just left the house. I preferred to be homeless than to get help. I didn't feel like I needed help. I felt like it was the cards I was dealt if I didn't grow up the way that I did and have such, what I deemed, tumultuous childhood, that I wouldn't be going through all of this stuff. I wouldn't need to drink. So I lived on Skid Row for some years, off and on, rode trains, slept in parks, winter shelters. That was pretty much my rotation from 2009 to about 2013.
Wow.
Yeah. And it's amazing how comfortable you get when you're in addiction. Skid Row, St. Julian did not seem scary to me. I was blessed though. God continued to look over me, because even being on Skid Row, when people were doing, I don't want to say harder drugs than alcohol, but real, shooting up and smoking, and people would say, "Hey man, go around the corner. Leon's right here. Don't do that in front of Leon, man. He don't mess around. He just drank." So people had enough respect. If they saw me, they'd be like, "Oh man, my bad. I didn't even know you was coming." And they would kind of go off to the side. So no one ever offered me anything. And when somebody did, others around them would say, "Hey man, hold up, bro. He only drink, man." So that was a blessing in itself, because I have a very, even to this day, an addictive personality. So who knows how it would have escalated to have tried heroin or cocaine or anything, because that runs in my family as well. So in 2013, I looked up to the sky and I said, "God, I'm really tired of this. I don't know how to get away." And that night I went to jail. I got into the mix with somebody. We had this combat situation, and I forgot to tell you, I had hurt my leg, so I had broke my tibia, and so I had crutches, and I had been on the crutches so long that the metal part had wore through the bottom of the crutches. So it's like you can hear me coming, click, clack, click. So people say, "What's up, click, clack? What's up? What's going on, click, clack?" So when the guy ran towards me, I put my crutch up to kind of block him, but it went from his chest to his face, and the metal kind of scratched him. It looked horrible, and it was unintentional. I didn't mean to do that, but it made me look like I was just a savage. When the police arrived, because he was bleeding profusely, I went to jail for a few charges. Now, mind you, this time I had been going to jail back and forth all the time. Like I said, sometimes 3 times in a year. A lot of DA rejects, so many. I kicked the police window out before and got a DA reject. Wow. So God continued to protect me and watch over me during all this time. But this particular time, usually they would, if you don't hear your name, you got a DA reject. So when the lady called my name, I said, "Uh-oh." I went to her. She said, "Hey, the DA is picking up these charges, and because of your extensive arrest record and XYZ, your bail's 100,000. And so I knew I was going to be sitting there. And that's when the real reality and fear, and, because usually I wouldn't even get a bed. I would stay 2 or 3 days through processing, maybe a week at the most, and I would be released. Even times I turned myself in because I didn't do what was required of me on my probation. I would do 2 days and be released. So this was a game I was playing. I'll turn myself in. You're going to give me 90 days? I won't do 90 days. It's nonviolent. I know I'll get out in 2 days. So it didn't bother me. I would go have fun, party with my friends, and then turn myself in the next morning. But this particular moment, I knew that I was going to be there. So from March of 2013 until September of 2013, I was in the county jail, in Los Angeles County Jail, between there and Wayside, going back and forth. And again, I asked God to be released. I asked him to help me, to get me away from it, and he did. And it was amazing that in that neighborhood that I lived in, and where I frequented, I should say, it was a gang war going on. So people were getting shot left and right. People were coming into jail like, "Hey man, over there on Hoover, oh man, people are getting gunned down over there." And it's amazing because that would not have deterred me from going to that liquor store or getting around where I needed to go, you know? So I believe that I was saved during that time. I pled no contest in July because they said I had time served. So it went from them trying to offer me a strike to, you know, 3 years with half to, and it went down each time. So, and before I go any further, let me say this. It is amazing the difference in sentencing between young Black men and other races. This isn't to play a race card. I'm not trying to get into race card. I am not saying it's unfair because we shouldn't be doing crimes to begin with. I was in there because I was supposed to be there. I wasn't, you know, but I saw people with the same exact charges. There was a young man who went in there who was his first time. It was a criminal burglary. They gave him almost 5 years for that. Another guy went in that wasn't a brother, went in about two people behind him, the same charge, except he had a prior conviction of the same thing, and they gave him a drug program. He said, you know, I'm doing all of this because I'm on drugs. And so it was just amazing seeing how many people like, look, there's nobody against me to this and that. I'm out of here. I know that I'm going to get the charges dropped, man. They're really excited. And they come back from court. Man, I got 2 years. Man, it was amazing. So when they told me time served, but it is a felony on your record, I was not thinking about the ramifications at all. I just wanted to get out. You said time served. I'll take it. I'll take it. And so I did. But I didn't get out until September, which really had me scared because, you know, July finished passing by, August, and then finally September 11th, 2013, they released me. I wish I could say that's when the drinking stopped and I went into treatment and I got better, but it's not. I still continue to drink, although after being released, that was the last time I ever went to jail again. I was able to kind of keep it to a point where I didn't run in with police. I met a young lady and got married for the second time in 2014. She drank, she smoked, everything was beautiful until that anger came out again. Then I was disrespectful to her son, to anybody else around me. And that lasted maybe a year and a half. So 2015 Christmas, I woke up, I looked over at her, I felt something in the pit of my stomach, and I knew I had to get out of there. It was something in me that made me want to just leave clothes, leave everything, no job, don't worry about any of that. So I just got paid, and I said, God, if you would lead me to where I need to go, I'll go. So I ended up on a train back in Oxnard, California, where I grew up, you know, from 3rd grade to 10th grade. I had family that lived out there and they let me stay with them. And I was just there. I was trying to figure it out. They were telling me, hey, you can find a job here. They didn't know how bad my alcoholism was. You know, they didn't know. They knew I drank, but they didn't know how the severity of it all.
Right.
But they're non-judgmental. They're really into Christ. And they know because it's their brothers and cousins that, you know, this alcoholism has passed down from. So they understood. And so that was going to be my plan. I'm just going to stay out here, find a job. And I went to church. One Sunday, I went to church, the church that I grew up in and got baptized in as a kid. And the pastor saw me and he asked if he can pray for me. Now, mind you, I hadn't drank for a couple of days. You know, I thought I was okay. I had kind of cleaned myself up. He began to pray over me. And he said, this man is going to be able to help a lot of people, but he's got to do it sober. I felt everybody in the church hands on me. My body got hot. And usually I would deflect, I would ignore, I would lie and minimize my drinking. How can I do that in the church to the pastor? There was nothing I can do. Right. I couldn't do anything. So I broke down. The hardest but the best cry of my life. You know, it just all came out. All of the years of of pain and anxiety and hurt and regret and resentment. It had just came out. Now, mind you, there have been times before that people would see me and say, "Hey, brother, my name is Prophet this," or, whatever, and say, God has a calling on your life. Oh, man, everybody say that, you know what I'm saying? Calling on your life, calling on your life. Right. So this time it was such an overwhelming feeling of love from everybody and the hugs and everything that I knew I couldn't live there in Oxnard. I had to face my wife. I had to face everything. So I asked God again, guide me. Wherever you would have me go, I'll go. I ended up back on the train, and this time I was on my phone calling rehab centers. Somebody told me about a rehab center, but they were $20,000, $30,000 a month. Finally, I saw one that said Brown Scapular. I said, let me call this. I called, a gentleman answered, an old man, said, "Hey, how, talking to me, how do you think you need to be here?" I let him know. And he said, "Yeah, you need to be here." So he asked me, was I on GR? And I wasn't, because I kept the job during this, what they would call functional alcoholics. Even in my homelessness, I was able to keep a job for the most part, but I was not functioning at all. So I told him I wasn't. He said, "Go tomorrow, get on GR, and you can come. We'll keep a bed for you." So I did that. March the 9th, I ended up, in Brown Scapular, or what they call Cannon House in Watts, California. All male facility, inpatient facility, 4-tour room. And I was excited. I was excited. I said, I called my wife and told her where I was, my wife at the time, and told her where I was. And first thing she said, "What about the bills? What you gonna do? How long is this treatment?" So she didn't care that I was in treatment and gonna get my life together. She was worried about those bills, which I could understand. I told her 6 months, and that was the last I heard from her. She blocked my phone, my number. So at that point, I had to just focus on getting sober. So that night, I'm so excited. They give me my room. I go inside with the guys that, once they said everybody to their room, Coach, I'm going to tell you, everybody started pulling out their favorites. People pulling out foil, bottles. Wow. So I'm thinking, oh, it's not really about getting sober. It's just about hiding it better. It's about, so I'm really learning some real game here. It's similar to, you go to prison and you learn how to be a little more sneaky. That's kind of the mentality that I had. But the funny thing was, every time I participated, there was one time that I drank, and somebody in the house saw me. And everybody was doing it, but for some reason, it made him upset that he saw me doing it, and he told. So I said, yeah, he's right. I did, and I got a 30-day reprimand. I couldn't do anything for 30 days, no weights, no anything. The second time I had a dentist appointment, and I was supposed to have a chaperone. Everybody has like an escort. This guy said, "Hey, man, I'm about to go see my girl real quick. Meet me back here at 3:00, bro. Just meet me back here." So first thing I did was went to the store. But this time I went way down in the alley. And I killed me a couple shots while I was in the alley. I walk out and I make it home. Nobody expects anything. Me and the guy came back together. They let some of us talk at this H&I panel, hospitals and institutions. They came into the facility, and here I am saying, I'm just grateful to be here. I'm going to do it right this time. And, I had so much great stuff to say. Once the meeting was over, a gentleman walked over to me and said, "Hey, I saw you in that alley today." Oh, my goodness. My heart dropped to my shoes, It seemed like every time I would try to cut a corner, so I told on myself again. But now I have this resentment and this anger. I'm not accepting responsibility. I'm mad at everybody else for getting away with it and me consistently getting caught. So I said, you know what? I'm gonna cut my GR card off, and I'm gonna leave in the morning. I'm gonna wait the day before the money drops, and I'm gonna leave. And I did that. I guess I was gonna start my empire with $221 and $189 in food stamps. I left early that morning. Everything that I had learned during that time began to speak to me. The type of alcoholics, phenomenon of craving, you know, the incomprehensible demoralization that we go through, ending up in the same spots. And I said, that's not going to be me. So I get to the bus stop and I'm across the street from a liquor store. And coach, I kid you not, it was daytime. It was early in the morning, but the liquor light, it was flashing. The lights were flashing, it seemed like. So I ran across the street. I grabbed a couple shots. I didn't think not to drink. I was thinking, this is going to feel good because I'm free. I don't have to worry about hiding it. It is what it is. So I drank those shots. Before the bus come, I ran across, got a couple more. And I was almost on my way back for a third time before the bus came. So all of my plans went out the window. I still to this day do not know what motel I took my clothes to or where I was staying at the time. I ended up going on a run. You know, I went on this real big binge. I remember seeing a couple friends as I was blacking in and out. And I woke up on my friend's couch maybe about 5 days later. And she was saying, hey, you got to go. I got a son. You can't be here like this. And she called the place that I was staying at, the treatment facility. And they were not supposed to let me back. They were not. But through the God's grace, they let me come back that same day. And from that day forward, I started taking it seriously. I got a sponsor. I didn't worry about what everybody else was doing. I started to be accountable for the things that I had did up to that point, all the people I had hurt, not being in my son's life. I began to offload a lot of the baggage that I was carrying around. I was able to, you know, admit the molestation and the things that were going on all those years. I began to get into the steps and work with my sponsor. And it was just an awesome transformation. You know, it was awesome. The day that I came back, I had auditory hallucinations and they were saying some really evil stuff. So when I prayed to God that he can just help me through the night and I woke up and I could hear birds chirping and the lawnmowers outside, this sense of relief came over me. And I knew if God can get me through that day, he can get me through the rest of my life. So that was my mentality going in, that I know that I just didn't believe that I would fail. So since that day, you know, I stayed in treatment a year. Then I went and I rented a room from a lady who didn't drink and smoke, and she was a counselor as well. So that was a safe haven for about a year. Then I began working, and in 2019, I got married for the third time, 3 times the charm. This is a sober marriage. You know, I'm in my son's life fully now. Although he's in Georgia, we keep contact. He hits me up all the time. My brother and sister now call for advice or let me know how proud they are. And I have a 1-year-old daughter. She'll be 2 in October. So for me to think out of all the situations I've been through in my life and feeling like my life will be subpar if I leave drinking alone, it would be bland, you know. I can't in a million years have imagined that I would put my daughter on a bike and ride a path up the beach, you know, or be able to help other people that are in these seemingly hopeless situations, you know, to not disclose with them everything I've been through, but without saying too much, understand that I can feel their pain. You know, I can kind of empathize with what they're going through. I knew when I was in treatment that was my calling. You know, to break this generational curse, so to speak, that's in my family, this predisposition of alcohol use, drug abuse, violence, dysfunction. There was a point when I was with my wife, we first got together. I was like, she loves God, she's pretty, she cooks, but something is missing. And what was missing was the dysfunction. The dysfunction was missing. And it's crazy how we can be so used to it that our lives don't seem to have any meaning unless it's present.
Wow.
So, so I give glory to God because it was nothing that I did but surrender. You know, along the way, even though I was undeserving and I cursed him at times and said, hey, you help everybody else but me, you know, grace did not run out on me. And, you know, people say grace don't run out. I believe grace will run out on you. You keep on playing. You know, we only have so much time on this earth. So I'm just grateful that grace didn't run out, that I can be a positive force in the world, and I can try to help be a part of the solution to drugs and alcohol abuse, mental health, the whole, any trauma that a person kind of needs to learn how to process and wants to get through without judgment. I'm so grateful that I have the opportunity to be a part of that now, as opposed to being part of the problem.
Well, so let me ask you a question. When drinking or any type of reference to alcohol comes up, or maybe you're going through, like, say, the grocery store, and you might go down that aisle or something like that, how do you deal with that? I mean, what's going through your head at that time?
Nothing. I have shirts called Recovered with the ED. And there are people who are in active addiction. There are people who are in recovery. They're going back and forth, or maybe they just have a little bit of time under their belt. And people like myself who have been able to sustain a number of years, and I'm just on maintenance steps. There was a time I went to Las Vegas and the restaurant was really packed, and they said, we can sit you here. And I sat there with my wife and we were eating. And once I left, she said, we were sitting at the bar. Like, I didn't even realize I was at the bar with all the drinks. I understand now that drinking will not help. I have been able to offload that trauma, because we drink for the effect it produces. So right. For me to try to suppress or to block out these traumas, I don't need it. Now, mind you, I have an allergy to alcohol. So I'm recovered, but I'm not cured. That is something I definitely would not play. It's an allergy. Once I take one, all bets are off. Wow. One is too many, 1,000 is not enough. So I consider alcohol a disease. If a person has cancer and their cancer goes into remission, they're not going to start smoking cigarettes again. You don't start eating bad again because it's in remission. So I have this disease under arrest, but I am definitely not fooled to think that I can take one. I don't even have a desire. God has brought me so far and made life so beautiful for me that the roses aren't always red. The grass isn't always green. But like my sponsor says, as long as I don't drink, things can work out for the best. So, having that, yeah.
So let me ask you. No, you're fine. When we hear a lot about social drinking, and how someone will deny that they, are an alcoholic. They say, I'm just a social drinker. What is the balance there? Is there really a such thing as social drinker? Can you actually cross over into becoming an alcoholic? I mean, with your life experience and you being a certified sober coach, how does that work out? I mean, explain that to us.
Well, first I'll say that to being an alcoholic is a self-diagnosis. A person can drink every day and not be alcoholic. Some people only drink 3 or 4 times out of the year in what you would call binge drinking. That family member that falls out every Halloween or every Thanksgiving, that's an issue. We drink for the effect it produces. Some things can just be cultural, but I believe a definite invisible line can be crossed and our bodies can become dependent on the chemical. It's like having coffee every morning. If a person don't have their cup of Joe, now they're a little cranky, they're a little upset. I really would look at, there's certain questions I would ask, like if a person has blacked out, how many times have you blacked out? What is your amount of drink? Have you ever been arrested? Is it affecting your relationship with your family? Is it affecting your relationship with your jobs? Have you been fired from any jobs? Have you ever in the morning thought, how did I get home? There are some people to this day, I have friends that drink. They go out and party every weekend and they have fun and they can stop. See, when I believe that the alcoholic title comes in when I want to stop and I can't. When I say, okay, this is my last beer, but okay, wait, one more and one more. My personality will change from polite and reserved to wild and aggressive, or very, very sad, on a continued basis. But like I said at the beginning, I believe that it is a self-diagnosis, because see, if those who believe in the steps, we have to admit that we are powerless. and that our lives have become unmanageable. So I have to admit that intrinsically within myself and say, you know what, I am powerless over this substance, over this porn, over this gambling, over this eating, whatever it is, over this promiscuity. I am powerless. My life has become unmanageable. So I was talking to my mother-in-law about that last night. She said, if a person drinks every day, they alcoholic. I'm saying, Mom, that's not the case. People aren't even just functioning alcoholics. Some people have a few drinks, they relax, they chill. They don't have this predisposition that I have. My personality changes. When I drink, police show up. When I drink, I can't remember what happened to me the next day. I hurt people's feelings. When I had to do my amends list, I look back on that amends list, women, mother, grandmother, my wives that I had, girlfriends, their kids, my son. It wasn't Day down the street that be carrying the gun. I didn't have to go make amends to him. I didn't have to go talk to the people. So, it was the people that loved you, the people closest to me. And that becomes an issue. So going to jail, losing jobs, not being able to function properly. You don't wake up when you're supposed to. You're starting to negate your responsibilities. People know when there's an issue. Now it's all about if they want to admit it. But being an alcoholic, in my opinion, and there's other approaches to it, but it's a self-diagnosis.
Okay. So then let me ask you, actually we allow, if anybody have questions out there, feel free to ask. But if they do, in the meantime, I want to ask you, when did you get to a place of forgiving your childhood, the thing that kind of started all this?
Oh, man, it's amazing. I wasn't even going to bring this up, but since you asked the question, the young lady who introduced me to all of that, and she was murdered. Wow. She was at a party. It was her sister's birthday party, and I never forget it. I just saw her sister, and she said, "Hey, my birthday's tomorrow. I'm having a party at my mom's house. You should come through." I said, "Okay." But I knew I wasn't, but I was, I might swing by. But the next day I heard that the music was too loud. The boyfriend of the house said, "Hey," the mother's boyfriend, "Hey, cut the music down. The party needs to be over." They said, "You need to mind your business." He went back to the car. He shot and killed the birthday girl and the sister, the one who had introduced me to all of this, while she was trying to render aid to her sister, and then went after the baby sister. He's in prison now for it. But that was one person. They say sometimes the best apology is the one not given. And that's a perfect example of it. I had to kind of release any animosity, any resentment, wanting to confront her or ask her about it or anything. She's no longer here. I didn't even really talk a lot about it to people because they say she got what she deserved. You know what I mean? And so that kind of hurts. But it taught me a lesson that there are other people also along this journey that I don't need apologies from. There were things that I experienced being around my mother and kind of our relationship that was kind of hindered, that I no longer needed validation for what I was trying to explain to her, because I went through therapy. I've had group counseling. I have a sponsor. I've learned how to process my emotions, and my mother hasn't. So, you're going to get that response, "Hey, I did the best I can." So instead of making someone feel bad or say all the things that they didn't do right or whatever the situation is, it's just always best that, for instance, if she says, "Man, my prayers work," I say, "They sure did," they sure did. Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, Coach, you got a lot of, you've overcome a lot, you overcome a lot of things. And, I asked about forgiveness because I know, just in my personal experience and a lot of people that I've dealt with over the years, one of the biggest things that hinder us from moving forward and being successful, whether it's in our job or family life, or whatever the case may be, we typically hold on to the past. We hold on to those difficult things, and we can't even see how maybe it's our spouse, how they're trying to love us or how they're trying to, nurture us or help us improve in our life. But we see them through the eyes of our history, and it keeps us from really, enjoying that relationship or even, just a simple thing. So I wanted to ask you that about forgiveness because I think that's the key, to really going forward. You obviously had to forgive yourself for the things that you've done over the years so that you can be that father, that husband, the sober coach that can help someone else overcome their struggles and things like that. So, yeah, coach, so let me ask you, before we go, what's the one thing you want to tell people, to really help them, go from that level of just being in the dark into coming into the light?
First, I would say find you a higher power. I say it that way right now, but my higher power is God. I follow Christ. That's number one. Number two, you don't have to go through it alone. This is not about how much brain power or willpower I have. I can put this bottle at home, and as long as I don't drink it, I'm strong enough. We don't want to be strong. We want to be smart. It's the same scenario when you see those deer or whatever, jackals running through, gazelles running through. The ones that get picked off by the lions are the ones that get separated from the herd. The ones that get separated. So get around some people that you can trust and that you can kind of trudge with. You don't try to do it by yourself. This is spiritual maladies. It doesn't mean that you're weak if you need to go to therapy or if you need to talk to somebody about something that affected you as a child. This is about longevity. This is about understanding that our stories, our things that we have overcome are now testimonies for others to help them. Like, my trouble isn't for me. The things I went through isn't for me. It's for other people. So, don't give up and don't do it by yourself.
All right, absolutely. Yeah, I totally agree with that, Coach. So how can people get a hold of you? I know we have your website here. If you want to reach out to the coach.
Findmytribe.com is a website that's up. I am still working on a website as far as pictures, but it is fully functional. There's a section there where you can request a consultation with me. Also on Instagram, I'm Sober Coach Leon on Instagram. Also on Twitter, Sober Coach Leon, and on TikTok, Sober Coach Leon. Facebook is Leon Richard. So any of those platforms, you can reach out to me if you have any questions, or you may need to be pointed in the right direction in regards to where to find help, co-occurring help for mental health or drugs. I am in the California area, so I'm a lot more equipped to help people that is on this side, but I can definitely help find the information if need be.
Awesome. So, hey, listen, guys, I encourage you guys to share this video, reach out to Coach Leon. He's experienced, pretty much it all, so if you know somebody out there that's going through it and they need some help, I see this guy, this coach here as a great example of somebody that can lead. So listen, Coach, I appreciate you coming on, sharing your story, being transparent. I think the best way to reach somebody is to be truthful and transparent because, we're all going through something, but knowing that we can relate, people can relate to us can help them overcome the things that they're going through. So absolutely. I appreciate you coming on, Coach, and all you guys that watch, I appreciate you guys tuning in, and we look forward to seeing everybody again next Monday, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And you guys enjoy the rest of your day and be blessed. All right, Coach.
Thank you, sir. Have a great one.
You too.